Mm. 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 Hey everyone, good to see you all here. This is Viperstrike 95 here today on this wonderful Sunday morning here in the States, or it might be Sunday afternoon for all of those in Europe. Good to see you. Privyet everyone. And we're here in Smolensk in the Smolensk Oblast of Russia. So good to see everyone here today. And hopefully we're going to be doing a very interesting flight as we fly from Smolensk into the heart of Russia, Moscow. So in the chat, we already have volleyball in the chat. Good to see you. Just watching. Hey Viperstrike, just watching Raven Helmet in Cannonball Run. Saw you're flying. How are you, mate? Doing great. Thanks for coming by yesterday for my Christmas stream. I really appreciate you coming by. So I really appreciate it. So for our today's trip, we're going to be flying from Smolensk to Moscow. This would actually be the shortest leg of the entire journey, believe it or not, is this one. We just fly from Smolensk. We're going to go 137 nautical miles, and we're going to be flying over the Bordino battlefield, which is where the Battle of Bordino was during the Napoleonic Wars. And then we'll fly into Moscow. We're going to fly to Kondoka Field in Moscow. And then we're going to land at Uniform Echo Echo at Sheremetyevo Airport, International Airport, just outside of Moscow. So, pretty easy trip. And this should be a very short one as well. You're doing great, mate. I'm glad things are going well for your Raleigh. So, the weather should be mostly cleared up from last week's trip. So, we're going to get back to the Junkers Ju-52. And I just realized I forgot to put that very special livery that Stumble Across made. I just realized that. But yeah, again, for this entire trip, we are taking the Junkers. This is a beautiful warbird, and if you want to get your hands on this amazing piece of history, it's on the InSim marketplace for $15, which is an absolute steal. It looks stunning, it sounds stunning, and it's because it is a stunning warbird. So we're gonna get back into the cockpit. We're gonna try and turn this plane on. So let me go ahead and do the checklist. Battery on. The levers are idle. Fuel supply, check. Turn the pipe here on. That should disappear. Boom. Off. And all the flight controls are correct. We already did that. Check. Boom. Okay. Easy. Like I said, this should be really, really easy. I'm gonna go ahead and put all the 3 lubricants into this. I'm gonna open all 3 magnetos. Gonna go ahead and set this all here. There. Okay. Both of those are good. Got those engines done. And I've already got engine 1 start, so we just got to turn off the... This one we just got to turn on the fuel pump. And I think we could just get the second engine started as well. And look at that, we already got all the engines started. That's fast. We just gotta turn on the other lights. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, okay. That is a new record. That took me around 3 minutes to start this thing. Which, by the way, is a new record in the JU-52 for me. So we should be pretty good here. So we should be pretty good. We should take off here. Now I need to set my heading. So our heading should be 62 degrees in our heading. So we need to set this to 62. Okay, we should do pretty good. So I need to get that Sim Toolkit Pro back up. So we go up here. We're going to go ahead and take off. This should be the shortest leg of the trip. Push her down. 60. And we should get the Junkers off the ground pretty easily. Nice and smooth. We turn on the autopilot, or more specifically the gyro pilot. These Junkers in this case is a quick one. Now for this one, our altitude should be 2,000 feet. Should be the safe altitude. So once we get near the altitude, I'm going to set the trim in. So this should be a nice, easy, short flight trip. Though I shouldn't be surprised that I'm not getting as many viewers today. I shouldn't be surprised because Cannonball Run is going on. But at least the good news is that this is actually one of those shorter trips. So this one is not such a bad idea. At least the good news is now that this is somewhat of a clear day, we can actually see what's out here. There we go. There we go. I got my Sim 2 Toolkit Pro up. So we're going to be going at 128 knots here for this trip. Still somewhat slow. I'm only going at 122 knots, which is pretty slow for the trip. But this is the first time we get to actually see and appreciate the Eastern European countryside. This will be the first time we actually get to appreciate that here in the sim. And yeah, look at those three BMW engines. Just, oh, that sound. What a mighty sound that is. I don't want to stay out of autopilot for too long because obviously, if I stay out of autopilot for too long, unlike the autopilot airplanes, this doesn't exactly keep to its heading. It will drift. Hey, Martel172, good to see you. I hope the rest of your Christmas night went well for you. This is leg 3 of the trip. We're flying from Smolensk to Moscow. I mean, everyone's doing the cannonball run today, so that's probably why I'm not getting as much traffic today as I would. I'm not complaining. The cannonball run's done for charity, and by the way, I will raid to one of those today, so. My Sim takes ages to launch at the moment. I suspected since I bought the Reno package. Yeah, the Reno thing could definitely be a thing. The whole Reno such. I think it's because with the Reno, all these planes are individualized. And I think that's probably what's causing your problem there, Martel. But like I said, that's probably the main reason for it. I mean, if I would have done the Reno thing, I would have probably just, you know, I would just probably made the other planes like liveries, as separate liveries for the plane if you want to get that, and that may cut down the loading costs instead of just having separate planes. Yes, I have a difficult time keeping oversight about all the planes now. Yep. So today, I hope you're all having a great day. I know right now is a big time event with the Cannonball Run. It's a huge event right now. And for guys who don't know, the Cannonball Run, CDL is the one who organized this event, just like he did with some of the other community events here. And they're raising for a great cause. They do these for charity and such, and I think it's really awesome that there are many people in this community that are currently doing it. I mean, Captain Savvy's doing it, Angry Warnhorn's part of it, Eric Flight, and many others are doing the whole event for charity, and they're raising it for the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. And their goal is to reach $10,000, which I'm really hoping they meet, because, I mean, it'll be for a great cause, especially how bad suicide is, as well. Maybe at some point next year I may get involved in one of them, maybe do one of these charity events. So it would be for an excellent cause, and I'm very excited. So today we're going to be actually talking about, we're in Russia right now, we're actually in the interior. So I want to talk a little bit about Russia, but this is just the basics of Russia. So I'm not going to go really in depth with Russia right now because, well, most of this flight's going to be taking place in Russia to begin with. So I want to spread out the Russia topics. So I'm going to talk about the introduction to Russia. So Russia, or there's two different names for Russia in the Russian language. If it's in Cyrillic, it's Pochia, meaning in Romanicized terms, it's Russia. Those are the two names going for it. Russia is massive, as it spans across from Eastern Europe and Northern Asia. Russia is the most populous country of Europe and the 9th most populous country in the world at 145 million people. It's also the world's largest Christian Eastern Orthodox country as well. Now, the modern history of Russia has been documented all the way back to the modern 10th century AD, with its capital and largest city being in Moscow. There are many other iconic Russian cities as well, including that of St. Petersburg, which has been the previous capital, all the way up there next to Finland. And then Russia's other important city is Vladivostok, all the way across Siberia to the Gulf of the Pacific Ocean. Now, according to the Russian Federation Constitution, Russia consists of 85 different federal subjects, and basically for those federal subjects, they include 46 oblasts, basically that had these oblasts basically have a governor and locally elected legislator. So they're like states, 22 different republics, and each of these actually are nominally autonomous, and they're usually home to a specific ethnic minority and has its own constitutional language and legislator. And this is important because Russia's a very diverse country. You wouldn't think Russia would be that diverse, but there's actually lots of ethnic minorities in Russia. It's a much more diverse place than people give credit for. 9 different Krais, which is basically legally similar to the Oblast, but it's just a frontier territory. 4 autonomous okrugs, which is autonomous district. 3 different federal cities. These operate at separate regions. Those include Moscow, St. Petersburg, and here's a controversial one. That controversial one is Sevastopol. And that's controversial because of, well, the whole Crimea situation. And that's, I don't want to talk about that too much, but that's a very controversial thing. And then the last thing is actually one autonomous oblast, and the only one of those is actually the Jewish autonomous oblast that was established during the 40s. And that was established all the way back during the late 20s. And that was for the Jewish population, all that. However, it's not really as Jewish. In fact, most of the population actually is Eastern Orthodox. So pretty interesting to talk about there. Russia's got a very long history and such. I don't want to talk about it today, since obviously I'll talk more about Russia in more detail, but basically Russia is very rich in culture traditions, and Russia's history is quite the tumultuous one, to say the least. Russia's history is quite depressing for the most part. Not because it's because Russia historically has had a lot of turmoil with the Tsars, the communists, I mean all the way back with the Mongols, the wars with the Bolshevik Commonwealth. Russia's history, there's not much democracy in Russia historically. It's always been authoritarian, which made Russia kind of interesting compared to a lot of the other European countries. And that's why Russia culturally is is in many ways kind of different from the rest of Europe. It's really interesting to learn about Russian history. But like I said, I'm going to talk more about Russian history and more Russian topics when we go further into Russia. But since this is such a short flight today, I'll just give you the bare basics of it. Also, Russia is the world's largest country with 17,125,191 square kilometers, or 6,612,073 square miles. In fact, Russia is so large that it actually is bigger than the former planet of Pluto. I'm not kidding. Russia's huge. You may not think that's big on a wall map, but Russia's huge. Its size is so massive, it's not funny. In addition to this as well, I know for military purpose, Russia has the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons in existence. And probably the second most powerful military, too. So Russia, militarily, is a very powerful country in terms of military. So, yeah, Russia's kind of unique in the grand scheme of things about Europe. So, that's just a bit overview about Russia. Just a quick preview of what's going up. I'm planning on splitting the history and all that sort of stuff later on. Yeah, it is larger than Pluto. Russia's huge. It's actually massive. Yeah, its surface area is bigger than Pluto's, because Pluto's surface area is 16.7 million square kilometers. So Russia's actually just a bit bigger. Yeah, it's one of the many interesting things about Russia. It's such an interesting country as well. Also, in addition to this, Russia has had a lot of languages too. In fact, Russia has had many different languages. Russian is not the only official language of Russia. Even though Russia's the only federally official language, there's other officially recognized languages in the country, and that's due to the fact that this area here has historically been with a lot of different types of people that lived in the area where modern Russia's at. Pretty cool stuff. Russia's also got very deep culture and traditions that are really unique compared to a lot of the other sort of European stuff. It's really interesting. Sports are very big too. But like I said, there's a lot of Russia I want to talk about, but I want to space it all out, if you know what I mean. So we're going to be heading our way to the first waypoint. We're going to be heading towards the battlefield of Bordino. That's where our waypoint's going to be. So it'll be how much further are we from the waypoint again? About 80 nautical miles away. So definitely very interesting things. I mean, there's a lot of interesting fun facts about Russia. I'll cover them more, but if you want me to, I can give you some interesting facts about Russia. Like, for example, Russia has more billionaires per capita than any other place in the world. In fact, Russia's city of Moscow has the most billionaires. 79 billionaires per capita, which is pretty crazy. Is it related to Napoleon? Yes, it is. Actually, when we get there, I'm going to talk about Battle for a bit, because that's actually a very important battle during the Napoleonic Wars. Yeah. Yes, and if you remember, Napoleon did invade Russia during that time. So yes, very much so. Yeah, but it turned out to be quite a nice day here. And now with all the weather clearing up, it's still a bit cloudy, but the weather isn't bad. So it's now nice in the way it should be. Oh, there's Martel in the air. Good to see you, Martel. Just wanted to make sure you were in the air or not. Now, the reason we're flying this area. This has been a popular international air route during Russia during that time. So that's why we're flying in this kind of area. We had to keep it preloaded to the ground. I do some Y magic to catch up. Yep. Yeah, press Y. But I had a fantastic time last night with the Kodiak. That Kodiak was so fun to fly last night. Last night was so fun. Flying in Canada with the Simor Studio Kodiak was incredible. Originally, I was supposed to do a flight to Papua New Guinea with it, but I decided to fly in Alberta instead with Banff and Jasper National Park, and it was really well worth it. It was absolutely stunning with all the alpine lakes and such. I've always liked flying in the mountains myself, but with areas with lots of alpine lakes, I like doing that. And it was the same reason why I enjoyed flying through the Italian Alps and the border. So that sort of stuff was very fun. And I appreciated all those people who were with me last night. That was really awesome. Oh, by the way, the picture on this here is from St. Petersburg. Now, historically, I do want to talk a little bit about St. Petersburg, even though we're not going to be visiting. St. Petersburg was named after St. Peter the Great, who was a very well-known czar. One of Russia's most iconic czars, Peter the Great. St. Petersburg was the capital of the Russian Empire for, I think St. Petersburg, Russia was the capital of the Russian Empire from 1713 to 1918, after the fall of the Russian Empire, until the Bolsheviks moved the government to Moscow. But St. Petersburg is Russia's second largest city with 5.4 million people, the fourth largest in Europe, and the largest city in the Baltic Sea. And St. Petersburg from that is very much a cultural capital of Russia, and in 2018 received over 15 million tourists. Very historic place. It is very deep in culture and traditions. It's home to the National Library of Russia. It's also home to the Winter Palace. This is where the Tsars had their residence during that time. The Peter and Paul Cathedral was also there as well. And the Mariinsky Theater is home to many of the ballet dancers in Russia. Very deep place. St. Petersburg I would love to visit Russia at some point. Very, very interesting country. And that's why I'm hoping Microsoft Flight Simulator comes to Russia someday. I know with all the conflict going on, I think it's less and less likely, but I would love to see what Asobo could bring some of these Russian landmarks. Because Russia has some really cool landmarks. Very colorful and very decorative landmarks. Unfortunately for me, I didn't get my Christmas gifts, unfortunately. Well, with my dad having COVID, I couldn't get any of my Christmas gifts. So that's why I had to stream yesterday, was because I wasn't going to get a normal Christmas. I hope my dad gets well soon. Thanks, Martel. I think he's going to be fine. He's going to be just fine. So, for around 60 miles remaining, we should get there pretty, not too long. A colleague of mine visited St. Petersburg around 15 years ago, and he was quite impressed. Yeah, St. Petersburg is a very culturally rich city. I would love to visit St. Petersburg at some point. Like, I want to get out and explore a bit of Europe for a bit. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to get near to the Battle of Bordino. So basically, where we're going to be heading is there. So the Battle of Bordino was, it took place near the village of Bordino, just right 60 nautical miles outside of Moscow, on September 7th, 1812, during Napoleon's invasion of Russia. Now Napoleon took an army of 103,000 to 135,000 men, consisting of those of different nations, including the Duchy of Warsaw, Kingdom of Italy, and more, against the Russian Empire, led by General Mikhail Kutuzov, in 125 to 160,000 men. The goal for Napoleon was eventually, if he were to win this battle, he would go into Moscow and he would actually force the Russians to surrender. And there's some battle maps, some interesting situations as well. So there's some interesting battle maps I've been looking up. So in that battle, Napoleon eventually took advantage of the holes and openings. And thanks to Napoleon's great positioning and all that, the Russians Napoleon wanted a decisive victory over the Russians. They took Bordino and they marched into Moscow and they captured the city. However, the thing was, even though Napoleon did capture the city, the Russian surrender never actually came. And due to the cold and brutal winter of Russia, I mean, trust me, Russian winters can get really cold. It ended up losing a lot of men. In fact, of that army, only 10,000 returned from the Russian border, due to typhus, dysentery, starvation, and hypothermia, due to the Russian winter. And due to that Russian winter, eventually Napoleon would be turned back, and that's what eventually caused his downfall 3 years later. It was due to all that cold. So that's why the battle was actually a Pyrrhic victory, which means that they might have won, but it took such a heavy toll for the French that eventually led to their eventual downfall. And it's since been memorialized by many different people of its legacy. In Russia, this battle has been reenacted on the first Sunday of September every single year. as well. So this battle has been very historic for a couple of reasons, and that's why we're going to be flying over it today. This historic battle was a major point in the Napoleonic Wars. Yeah, conquered Russia. Only two nations that successfully took Russia. First was the Mongols, and that was back during the time of Genghis Khan and his Khans. The other nation that successfully conquered Russia, only temporarily though, was the Polish. But the Russians only temporarily, Poland only temporarily ruled over Russia during that time. But eventually Poland collapsed, and then for the Mongols collapsed as soon as they were formed, due to all the issues of the ineffective rule. Definitely very interesting countryside here. The countryside here looks really, really nice, actually. Nice looking countryside here. Though I can understand in the winter, this usually turns into mud, and that's also another reason why you should not invade Russia during the winter. Because with all the snow and cold, not only do you have to worry about Russia's cold weather, and trust me, Russia can get really cold, especially if you go further north. For example, Moscow, Russia's largest city of Moscow, for example. For example, Russia can get an average low in the wintertime of negative 8.7 degrees Celsius, which is around 16 degrees. That's usually the average temperature, which is kind of cold. However, there have been record number of low temperatures. For example, the record low in the Russian winter in January would be negative 42 degrees Celsius, which is negative 43 degrees Fahrenheit, which is extremely cold. And in some cities of Russia, it gets even colder. For example, Cheetah, one of the cities, it's located later in the journey. That can get as cold as negative 49.6 degrees Celsius, or negative 57.3 degrees Fahrenheit, which is extremely cold. Like, most US cities don't even get that cold. Or how about Krasnoyarsk, which can get to which had a record of negative 63 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 52.8 Celsius. The point is, Russia can get extremely cold. The point is, invading Russia is not a good idea. Russia's extremely cold. Hey, Iceman 333, good to see you, Iceman. We're flying towards Moscow today. We took off from Smolensk quite a while ago. We're heading towards and we're heading to the Bordino battlefield where the Battle of Bordino took place in the Napoleonic Wars. Then we're going to fly into Moscow and we're going to visit Kondoka Field, and then land in Sheremetyevo Airport. Like I said, this is going to be a nice short flight today. Especially that this is going to be the shortest flight of all the entire series, so it's going to be nice and short. Yeah, the country. Flying in this countryside kind of relaxed me a bit because, like I said, it's just I feel the countryside. You can't go wrong with that sort of thing. That's for sure. I'm gonna play a bit of music to kind of something relaxing and smooth. So let me go ahead and play some music for you all in the chat. Sorry, got you on. So I wonder, a good question, what's going to happen for next week? I know next week's going to be the new year. I have some kind of interesting ideas for whatever flights I want to come up with. I know one of those yesterday, Google McTavish said maybe try the Bolivian mountains. I might come up with something like that. But I do, guys, have a Discord in the channel. So if you want to catch up with more of my content and such, I have a Discord that way you guys can join in and be ready whenever I do my stream alerts. I also have a YouTube channel for all my previous VODs. For all my VODs, go here. If you use a browser version of Discord, I actually have the Discord app. I use a Discord app on my desktop, not the web browser version. That's what I use. I use the app version. Apart from the PC Sim, I'm on Linux. The browser version was the first way to go, but I'll check out the app. Yeah. The app you can put on desktop, and you can just go underneath the bar to do that. Which I think is actually more convenient for, at least for my computer. We should be getting very close to the battlefield site. We're around 30 nautical miles away from the battlefield site. So located in the area is the Battle of Bordino Museum. Now that's located around here. Now, of course, I'm looking at the website, and it's all Cyrillic. Good luck helping me out, translation. English. So that museum has many different exhibitions that talk about the Battle of Bordino. And talks about the Battle Museum panorama. It talks about all the different Napoleonic battles. And they also have the Museum of the Heroes of the Soviet Union and Russia. And more. And they did many different virtual exhibits, and that includes some of the stuff, but it's all in Cyrillic. I've been looking that up. And I'll talk more about Russia's language too during this trip. Talk about language, history, culture, cuisine. I'll talk more about those later on the trip. I just feel like today, with this being a really short trip, I don't think I can really am interested in talking about that. So a lot of things about Moscow as well, we're going to be going to. In real life, Moscow's got a lot of different military museums. They got all sorts of military museums around Moscow. They got, obviously we got the Bordino Museum, but there's also the T-34 Tank Museum as well. The Bordino Museum as well, located within the city. The Central Air Force Museum. And even a museum about the Kremlin. Lots of different military such. So if you're military buff, Moscow would definitely be a really interesting place to visit. The Cyrillic alphabet will make a trip to Russia not easy. Yeah, it's a completely different alphabet. I'll talk more about that throughout the trip. But basically, Cyrillic is not going to be an easy thing to do. It's one thing trying to understand a Romanized alphabet, but this is a completely different alphabet. Because it's in a Cyrillic script, and that's going to make things a lot more difficult for someone who's never taken it. But that's a great point. But thankfully, there are ways you can romanticize some of the Cyrillic text. That's probably, but I'm going to probably do is for Russian language and want to talk about it. I just translate. I put both versions so it can be easier for normal people to actually do. And I think we should be coming right up to Bordino. Yeah, my favorite plane in the sim is the Junkers. It is my favorite. It is probably my favorite too. Like, there's a lot of really amazing planes. I mean, the kit box has rapidly become one of my tops. The Simor Studio Kodiak is incredible. Even though those things may be more, like, in-depth, this will always be my favorite. It's just, this thing has so much character. It's got a lot of character to it. It's got that vintage old feel that I love. I love vintage planes. And there's a lot of things you can do with this. You're not limited to just a certain function like some of the other planes. It's a fantastic bush plane, and I really recommend it for the sim. Oh, Murph just posted something. Oh, he's gonna go be on YouTube. I just realized. If he was on Twitch, I would have rated Murph, but... But Tuto Murphy's not on Twitch, so I can't rate him. No. I do want to give a shout out to Raleigh Mall. Thanks for being in the chat with me, Raleigh Mall. Really awesome Aussie flight simmer. Talks about aviation history in Australia, which has a very underrated history. And I expect big things from him once the Fokker F Model 7 comes out for the sim. I got high hopes for that. And I would expect him to be one of the top people flying it. And I think it'd be fantastic if someone covers Australian aviation history. So give Ron a follow. I think he would absolutely appreciate it. No problem, Raleigh. Your movie starts streaming on the 20th of January. Nice, Raleigh Mall. Really excited for you to see you again. So we're right next to the Bordino battlefield. So this is kind of sort of the battlefield that Napoleon would have fought. Now, it's not nearly as so much full of towns and cities as it was back in the Napoleonic era. But I think you kind of see the point, though. Yeah, with the Fokker. Fokker, I'm very excited to see how it turns. I love the Junkers, and me being a vintage plane guy, I think the Fokker would be an excellent vintage plane for the sim. I'm very excited. just, just doing some relaxing. Not any big deal. Like, I'm gonna rebuild with your new cockpit. Oh, that's gonna be awesome. I'm really excited to see what you got, your new cockpit, Raleigh. And a lot of the OBS stuff. I'm really excited for the future of what you're gonna bring to the table. Well, I expect soon I'm gonna get my TCA throttle quadrant add-on, so I can have all the flaps and the parking brake and all that on the throttle, which is gonna be really nice. Now I don't have to do so much on the joystick. I can now do it on the throttle. Oh yeah, friends all. Good to see you. So right here is the Bordino battle site. Let me go ahead and pull the showcase camera. For the And French all sent me a really cool thing about the battle. Here. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. So, French all sent me this. So what this was, this shows the graphic of the loss of men, temperatures during his ill-fated assault of Moscow. And you can see all the losses Napoleon suffered during the crisis. It is massive. For example, he lost so many men. He had 100,000 men in Moscow, and look at the retreat. This is his retreat from Moscow. He went from nearly 100,000 men to 10,000 people. Hey, good to see you, French all. So right here is the Bordino battlefield. This is where the Battle of Bordino took place in the Napoleonic conflict. Right over here. In this graphic here is during the loss of the Bordino conflict, which I think is really nice. And the width shows the number of troops, Gray's attack, Flag's retreat, and map as well. So yeah, it just shows you just how badly Napoleon's men suffered in that conflict. It just really opens your eyes. But I appreciate you giving this to me, friend, for all. I was wondering where I could look up for something like that. So thank you, friend, for finding that. Yeah, it has all the temperatures, and it just shows you how cold it was. I mean, October 32nd, and by the time December was over, it was like negative 27 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 30 degrees Celsius. Basically, yeah, the winter that cold, hypothermia was a nasty, nasty problem. So, combine all that with the Russian men being more powerful, and Moscow gave the Russians a chance to reform and push Napoleon out of Russia. So, yeah, that's why that thing was an ill-fated victory. Let me put this back in the cockpit. great stuff. I love the history stuff. Yeah, I like this history stuff too. And by the way, for you guys who don't know, all the notes here for today's trip come from Night Zone. So after they get done with the Battle of Bordino, then they next follow the Moscow River, which is right here, I believe. So right here is the Moscow River that flows into the city of Moscow. Now, the Moscow River itself, it's known as the Mosca. And the Moscow River is one of Russia's longer rivers. It flows from the temporary the Moscow River, and it flows all the way to the Oka River, and that eventually merges into the massive, mighty Volga River. And on the banks of it is the famous Russian city of Moscow. The rows of buttons on the forms of the colonial troop uniforms were supposedly to discourage men from wiping nose on sleeves. Yeah, that is actually a really interesting detail. Yep, that's a good one. Yeah, because disease back then was a major problem. I'm always surprised with the flat terrain of Western Russia. Yeah, Western Russia is flat, but the thing is, though, friends all, in the winter time, all that turns into mud. And that's why invading troops have always had a hard time with Russia, because not only is Russia massive, the flat territory means it's always going to be flat. You're always going to have to worry about mud because of all the snow and rain. And if it's not the snow that'll get you, the mud will slow you down tremendously. And it's also cold. So basically, yeah. Yeah, land slowly drain. Newsreels from World War II may show Hitler trying to invade Russian winter as well. Not sure. Yeah, I wonder how that ended up for Hitler and the Germans. Yeah, that did not end up so well. Not to mention they never could exactly destroy the Russians in the Urals too, back in World War II. They never could actually successfully do that, just because Russia, you know. He might have thought Standard's attack, everything will be fine. No, that ended up being pretty bad. As soon as the Nazis lost steam, the Soviets turned him back with absolute vengeance. It also didn't help that he was fighting the two-front war, which against the Soviets that can just rebuild things. Yeah, eventually he was going to lose. Plus, it didn't help that during that time, the Americans also joined in the conflict as well, which made things even more difficult. Basically, doing that, it just secured his defeat. So here's more of the Moskva River, which is the Moscow River. Definitely some very scenic areas, that's for sure. Trim. Grand Army's new leader, General Georgy Zhukov, that counterattacked the Germans along the 200-mile front around Moscow. For the first time in the war, the Germans blitzkrieg reversed the as overwhelming numbers of Russian tanks, planes, and artillery tore them to pieces. The impact was devastating, full of battle fatigue. They were in full retreat. That is correct. The Battle of Moscow. General Zhukov attacked them during that time. It's the defense of Moscow. And it talked about the Battle of Moscow. And in fact, the success of the Battle of Moscow completely turned the war in favor of the Soviets. Because then the Soviets then turned back their invasion, and that basically led them to all the way to Berlin. So yeah, the Battle of Moscow, very, very important war. And that wasn't even the more violent of the battles in the Eastern Front. If you guys remember the battle of Stalingrad, that was literal war is like heck That was like the most brutal battle of the entire East, one of the most brutal battles of the entire Eastern Front. However, that was, well, the Battle of Stalingrad, after the Battle of Moscow, eventually they did drive out the Germans a bit, but after a couple of bad things happening, the Germans then successfully did an offensive and led to the Battle of Stalingrad. And that was probably the bloodiest battles in the history of warfare. That battle was beyond bloody. Stalingrad was like, it was literally just, it was a bloodbath on both sides. 2 million total casualties on both sides. The Soviets barely won. The Soviets won that battle. It lasted for 5 months, 1 week and 3 days. We won't be flying by it. And that was, it was such a bloody war. And that led to the expulsion of the Axis from the Caucasus, and it completely undid their 1942 campaign. And eventually, that pushed them all the way back to the end. So definitely a very interesting thing to talk about. But yeah, the Eastern Front was a bloody mess, to say the least. But actually, now that instead of talking about the bloody mess that was World War II, let's go talk about something else for a bit. And let's talk about the city of Moscow. Now, Moscow is the capital city and the largest city, not just in Russia, but it's also Europe's largest city, with a population within the city limits of 12 million people. Yes, 12 million people actually live in there, and it's one of the world's largest cities as well. This city was first documented in 1147, and it grew to be quite the prosperous and powerful city through the country's long history. It served during the earlier days as the capital of the Grand Duchy of Muscovite. And that one was the faction that unified all of Russia. It then became, it still became a major city during the Russian Empire, but with the Soviets arriving, Moscow returned to being the capital of Russia, and it's still been there ever since. It is the northernmost mega city in the world, and it has one of the largest urban economies on the planet, and it's also quite a bit grown as a tourist destination due to Moscow's extremely long history, and it has lots of different heritage sites, including, of course, the iconic Red Square, the Moscow Kremlin, St. Basil's Cathedral are all major parts of Russia's iconic and unique features. There's also the Cathedral of Christ the Savior, which is actually one of the Особо landmarks in Moscow as well. Russia also has one of the busiest metro systems in the planet with the Moscow Metro. So Moscow definitely is a very historic city, and some very famous Muscovites. They include the legendary Russian Tsar Peter I, aka Peter the Great, the Tsar that turned Russia and who got Russia out of its backwards way to become a modern European power. Then we have Alexander Pushkin, one of the most famous Russian authors and poets of all time. He is one of the great all-time authors, and he was the founder of all modern Russian literature. He was born in Moscow in 1799, and then a more recent Russian. How about potentially one of the greatest hockey players to ever exist, Alexander Ovechkin. Plays for the Washington Capitals in the NHL, and he is considered by many to be one of the greatest hockey players to ever play the sport. born here in Moscow. And there's also lots of other famous Muscovites too. And trust me, there's a lot of people from Moscow, including Fyodor Dostoevsky, Alexander Suvorov was born here as well. And then we also got some other traditional Russians. As well. There's so many iconic Russians, it's not funny. But yeah, there's so many iconic Russians that are born here in Moscow. Very, very well-known city. There's a lot of other things about Moscow too. Moscow is unique as there's actually not one, but 5 primary airports that actually serve Moscow. Yes, 5 international. Most cities don't really have 5 major airports, but Moscow is one of the ones that does. In addition to that as well, Moscow is also known for Moscow State University, and that's also a landmark in the sim, is Moscow State University. And that was founded all the way back in 1755. Quite an historic university. And of course, you can't forget the iconic Red Square, which is one of the most historic things about Russia. Now, a bit of background about Red Square. So, the Red Square has been around for a very long time. The history of this goes all the way back to before the 18th century. But the modern Red Square was developed during the 17th century. But Red Square became a major part for victory parades. There have been a lot of victory parades during this area, including the 1941 October Revolution Parade, and they've been hosting military parades here every single year for May Day, Victory Day, and October Revolution Day, and then they usually commence this for Victory Day. They've been held here every year. So there's been quite a few major buildings in that Red Square. One of the most unique buildings built there is St. Basil's Cathedral. Now, St. Basil's Cathedral was consecrated in the year 1561. The official name for it is the Cathedral of Vasily the Blessed, and it was built on orders from Ivan the Terrible, who was the ruler of Moscow and one of the other really well-known people of Moscow. And that church has been going on, and it has a really unique architectural style that makes it truly unique compared to all the other churches. And there's also the Moscow Kremlin as well. So lots of very iconic buildings, and that's why I took this picture here with some of Russia's most iconic buildings. Then we get to Kondoka Field, which is where we're going to be. We're going to make a checkpoint here pretty soon. So Kondoka Field has actually been around since the 14th century, believe it or not. It's been used for many celebrations for the centuries, usually historically has been for the Tsars of Russia. And for example, in 1775, it was used for grand festivities on the successful war against Turkey. And during the 19th century, they celebrated the coronation of Tsar Alexander III. And this site was also home to the aerodrome. Now, if this was still in the sim, we would have landed here at Kondoka Field. The aerodrome actually was carried out its first opening in 1910. And in 1911, that aerodrome was where Alexander Basil landed his Blériot 9 there, become only one of 11 pilots that started a 453-mile race between St. Petersburg and Moscow. And until 1933, I mean, it remained the only airport in Moscow, the aerodrome. When Baagel Airport opened in 1933. Passenger flights stopped there in the 40s, and from the 1950s to 2003, it was used for the shipping of new airplanes from Aleutian, and it was closed down in 2003. And as of 2016, it has been redeveloped for other uses. And currently, there used to be a storage of planes from Sukhoi, and Mikoyan and Gurevich, but they have been since moved. But the site was most infamous, though, for the Kondoka tragedy that occurred in 1896 during the crowning of Tsar Nicholas II, who was actually the last Tsar of Russia during that time. And because they couldn't keep order, it led to a very catastrophic crush, as 1,389 people were trampled and 1,300 people were injured during that tragedy. Hey, Splasher6, good to see you. We just made our way to Moscow, boys. And here's Moscow ahead of us. Happy birthday, Splasher6. Happy birthday, man. I hope you enjoy a really awesome birthday. And by the way, give Splasher6 a follow. One of my closest friends on the channel. Really big supporter for me and for the entire community. So give Splasher6 a follow, especially today's his birthday. I really appreciate him coming here. Unfortunately, the sad news is that Moscow has no photogrammetry, which is really unfortunate. I would love to see Moscow get photogrammetry. And there's Moscow State University over here. There's Moscow State University, and then there's the Price of the Blood. There's one of Russia's other churches. It's a shame, though. Now, the thing is, not much fun today. I have family over coming soon. That's awesome. I hope you have a great time with your family. Here's Splasher6. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the autopilot. Go ahead and turn that off. We're just going to do a little fly over Moscow. Now, here's the thing, though. There are landmark packs you can get for this. Drusky Design has done it, and then there's also some freeware ones that give Moscow landmarks. The only issue that the reason I haven't used those is because I don't think they would actually work. The freeware ones I looked at, they might have caused me CTVs, and that's the last thing I would want to have on a stream like this. And then I don't know if the Drusky Design one still works, because I don't think it's ever been updated properly. So that's the only reason I haven't run the other scenery stuff for Moscow. As soon as someone gets me a more updated version of Moscow, I would definitely like to do it. But this is Moscow, everyone. But yeah, but what I really hope is that Solo does photogrammetry for Russia. Gives Moscow and St. Petersburg photogrammetry. So we should be going to Kondoka Field. I think it's right in front of us. Kondoka Field's over here. Now, currently, the site actually has currently it's holding many modern developments, including 2 different arenas. One for multi-sports, and the other one is CSKA Stadium, and that's home to Moscow's premier football club, CKSA Moscow. So here's Kondoka Field over here. I know it doesn't look like much compared to this picture. Now we turn east, and we're going to now go to Sheremetyevo International Airport, and that will complete our journey in Moscow. So that would be the end of the trip. You know, nothing too crazy going on here today. This is definitely the shortest of all the flights. We might get this done less than 2 hours. Actually, no, I need to turn further this way. So, Sheremetyevo International Airport, known as Uniform Echo Echo, is actually the busiest airport in Russia. It's one of the 4 international airports, and it's actually the busiest airport of all of Russia, and the 5th busiest in all of Europe. Now, it was originally built as a military airbase, but it was converted into a civilian airport in 1959. It was originally named after a nearby village, and after a 2019 contest, they extended the name to include the Russian poet Alexander Pushkin, which is why the official name is Sheremetyevo Alexander S. Pushkin International Airport. Which makes sense. Alexander Pushkin is the founder of all modern Russian literature, of course. This airport comprises of 6 different terminals, 4 international ones, a domestic terminal, and a private aviation terminal. It's 18 miles northwest of central Moscow in the city of Khmelny in the Moscow Oblast. And in 2017, this airport handled about 40.1 million passengers and 380,090 aircraft movements during that time. This airport serves as the main hub for the Russian flag carrier Aeroflot and its branch of Russia Airlines, Whirlwind Airlines, and its branch Pegasusfly, Royal Flights, and Ural Airlines. So they all currently serve at the airport, and this airport serves as the main destination for all of Aeroflot's flights. They can fly all the way to Abu Dhabi, Amsterdam, Berlin, Rome, London. You can even fly from some of the places in the, I believe you can fly from some of the places in the U.S. Oh yeah, Washington, D.C. You can fly from L.A. to Moscow. Imagine flying from L.A. to Moscow. You can basically fly from all around the world here. It's a pretty crazy airport, such is this airport. So we're going to land on runway 06 right, so this will be pretty easy. Now, Aeroflot, the airliner service, was opened all the way back in 1923, about 98 years ago. And it's the largest airline of the entire Russian Federation. And in fact, it's actually one of the oldest active airlines on the entire planet, believe it or not. And Aeroflot also has had one of the largest, at one time was the largest airline in the world, as it was owned by the Soviet Union during that time. Now, currently, the Aeroflot currently has a pretty big fleet. Believe it or not, most of their fleet is actually Airbus A320s. Particularly, most of them are the A320-200 models and such, including 6 Airbus A320neos as well. They also fly Airbus A330s and A350s. And recently, they've been getting Boeing 737s and 777s, or the 777s. And then 13 of them are actually their Sukhoi Superjet 195 planes, made by Sukhoi. But they operate some pretty crazy Russian planes during that time. One of the craziest planes they made is the Tupolev Tu-144. And it was actually a supersonic airliner. Yes. In fact, it is the world's first commercial supersonic transport plane. So yeah, before the Concorde, that was the Concorde before the Concorde. And only 16 of those things have been built. Which is pretty... Okay. Alright guys, let's see what speed we're going. Whoa, that was a smooth landing. 104 feet per second. Okay, that was a good landing. That was actually really smooth. Hey, Uncle Carl's Airways, morning. Good morning to you. We're at the end of our journey, unfortunately, today. This was actually a really, really short flight. And we're actually here in Moscow. So this is Uniform, Echo, Echo. Russia's busiest airport. Yes, 104 feet per minute, which is actually very good. Feet per minute, yeah. That's quite a smooth landing, especially considering this is actually a this is a conventional gear landing. Pretty feet per minute. So let's see if Martel can get there safely. So basically, Uncle Carl's, we took off from about an hour 50 minutes ago. We took off from Smolensk Airport. We flew through the Battle of Bordino sites in the village of Bordino, Russia. And then we flown over Kondoka Field in Moscow, and now we ended up in Cheverino Alexander S. Pushkin International Airport. Good landing, mate. Thanks, Volleyball. So, once we get landed, we'll find a way to end this stream. And maybe we'll find someone to raid. Question is, who should I raid today? Um, I think we might raid Captain Sep. I think we could raid Daiki's stream. I know he's raided my stream more than a few times. So let's go raid Daiki Decimus' stream after Martel gets down. We'll prepare and we're gonna raid Daiki's stream. He's doing another leg of the Zara Rutherford and around the world journey. And since he's been raiding my stream a couple times in the past, I think we could raid his stream. Or maybe we could raid yeah, I think let's raid his stream. So there's Martel, and he's down. And he took the arrow, which is a good choice. So seriously, guys, I want to thank everyone here for joining me on today's flight. Let me go ahead and make a picture. Let me go take a pic so I can post it in the Discord. So we made it safely at UAE today in Russia. So I want to thank everyone here for today. With everyone being here, and I really do appreciate it. So on Wednesday, we will be heading off to. We're going to be heading to somewhere in the mountains, and we're going to have a great enjoyment for the mountains. Somewhere, I'll be taking the kit box, but it depends on where we're going to go. I'll post it for this upcoming week. And then on Sunday, we'll be taking off from Moscow. And we're gonna go for a pretty long journey. As we take off from Moscow, and we're gonna head to Kazan, including flying over to the town of Ozermas, and that is going to be a 405 nautical mile journey, which is going to be considerably longer than the previous one. So, I want to thank everyone here for being here for me today. I know this is a bit less traffic than usual, but I really appreciate everyone for being here today. So, take care, everyone. Viperstrike 95 out. See you all later.